The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Harborough again, everybody. Now we're beginning this week with a lovely village. You can see around me I'm in a modern estate here, but that doesn't really tell you the whole story about this place, because this is a very lovely ironstone village. There's a few hills to encounter in this one as well, so hopefully I'm prepared for those. This is the lovely little village of Great Easton. Great Easton, East Farm, Large. This week on TVI we make another return to Harborough to take on another 5 villages. All of these are located close to the county border with Rutland, and I think some of these could well pass for the best villages we've covered yet in Leicestershire. Let's see if you agree. To get things started this week, we're in Great Easton, which White's Directory of Leicestershire in 1846 described quite nicely as a neat and well-built village on the banks of a rivulet. Well, not much has changed. Great Easton is located in the attractive countryside of southeastern Leicestershire, close to the borders of Rutland and Northamptonshire. It lies in the Welland Valley, around 9 miles to the northeast of the nearest major town, Market Harborough. This is one of the larger villages of the Welland Valley. It's compact in shape, developed around a rectangle of roads. These roads are linked by a series of jitties or alleyways. In addition, there are 3 roads to the adjacent villages of Caldecott, Drayton and Horninghold. The Domesday Book showed the place name as Estone, and it was in the possession of Peterborough Abbey. Church ownership continued for a long time thereafter, with several local farmers renting land from the church commissioners. By the 16th century, the village was called Easton juxta Welland, later becoming Easton by Welland, Easton Magna, and finally Great Easton. And really, since the 17th century, very little has changed here. Great Easton has lost its shops and a few businesses like pubs and Moore and Haddon's corset makers, but it's remained pretty and really welcoming. Let's go for a walk and see if it still is. The present layout of Great Easton is medieval, although there has likely been some sort of settlement in the area since prehistoric times. The land around Great Easton has a long history of being agricultural, and the development of the village is intertwined with that farmland. In 2003, archaeological work undertaken here by Channel 4's Time Team showed that in around 800 AD, farmers started to leave their scattered farmsteads to live more communally. That resulted in a clustered settlement spreading downhill from the church to the area of the present village. At first, they called that village Estone, probably referring to its geographical position to the east of Medbourne, or perhaps Bringhurst, thanks to its important church. We'll learn more about its connection to Bringhurst tomorrow. Let's focus on the western side of the village first of all. This is what it looked like in 1900, and as you can see here, it was mainly farmland. A lot of this has been built over now, and I want to begin with this area here. It's mostly 1960s housing, but part of this land now contains a playground with a tale to tell. Ever since 1974, most of Great Easton has been a designated conservation area. The boundaries of that area take in 90% of the village. This area, though, is one of the exceptions. It's a housing estate consisting of 3 streets: Home Close, Barnsdale Close and Clarksdale. Most of this was built in the 1960s, although Home Close is a newer addition. To get to the main bits here in Great Easton, our first task is to cross a small field known as Clarke's Piece. Now, at the top of this estate, you can find the local playground / recreation area. Now, this is called, as you can see, Clarke's Piece. Now, how did it get that name, I wonder? Well, as always, there's a story behind that name. Let's tell it. Clarke's Piece is the only recreational land the village has these days. It used to have a playing field where cricket was once played. The cricket club actually still exists, but now they play in a different village. We'll learn more about them in a future episode. Clarke's Piece was the brainchild of its landowner, Nick Clarke. Since the village had no recreational facilities after the old cricket pitch returned to agricultural use, he decided to make a new area for the local children. Nick always had somewhere to play cricket or run around with his friends as a child and wanted something similar for the children in the village today, so he donated a piece of his own land to make this new recreation ground. Unfortunately, he never got to see this bit of land in action. He passed away from a brain tumour before his idea could be brought to life. That's where a group called Handmade Places came in. They, with help and funding from Wren, converted Nick's empty land into a natural play area. This now has a mixture of play equipment and provision for sports and games such as football goalposts and a basketball zone created on a square area of artificial sports surfacing. None of this would have been possible without Nick Clarke. The name Clarke's Piece is a fitting tribute. Brilliant little heartwarming story there about Clarke's Piece. Now we are on a footpath here which leads from Clarke's Piece into the main village. Everything you've seen so far has been fairly modern. Well, the rest of Great Easton is a lot different. It's a lot older. Let's go and check it out. After walking across Clarke's Piece via a footpath, we find ourselves in the north of the village. This section will see us take in two former pubs, both of which are marked here. Neither are still in business though. We'll also see the ancient church in this section too, dedicated to St Andrew. Great Easton has always been a traditional farming village, and it remains so today. Much of its historic character comes from the relationship of farms and fields to the housing and other buildings which form the settlement. In general, Great Easton is a quiet, tranquil village, but it's still agriculturally active. The peaceful nature of it can be periodically disturbed by farm traffic, but that's to be expected, given that it still has a working farm just behind the church. Some of the street names in the village reflect the integral role of farming here, like for example Musk Close off Broadgate. This is named after the Musk family because these houses were built on their former paddock. Another example is Moulds Lane that connects the High Street to Brook Lane. Again, that refers to another agricultural family. The Moulds once farmed in Great Easton and built a set of cottages for their workers in 1913. The prominent building material in Great Easton is ironstone. Roof materials are a mixture of thatch or Collie Western or Welsh slate. A lot of buildings show a characteristic feature of the Welland Valley, striped stonework formed of alternating bands of brown ironstone and Weldon stone. The combination of materials on display here once led the historian W.G. Hoskins to describe Great Easton as the most attractive village in Leicestershire to look at, with its groups of fine ironstone farmhouses, manor houses and cottages, nearly all built in the first half of the 17th century. We're on the High Street briefly now, and next to see is the Grade 2 listed Granby House. The current building dates from the late 19th century, although we do know it's been rebuilt. That's because it was first licensed as a public house in 1753. It was the Marquis of Granby. It held its status as a pub until 1914, when it closed and became the house it is now. It was a very prominent pub, one of 6 that Great Easton once had to its name. The Marquis of Granby was often used as a communal venue as well as a pub. One of its larger outbuildings was used in much the same way as a village hall, hosting things like dances and similar events. Before the current village hall was established in the 1950s, this was the only go-to place, so this house can claim to have played an important part in village life. So everything so far has been a gentle climb uphill. You remember at the beginning of this video I said there are some hills involved here. Well, now we're going to get to the top of that hill by using this path here. This will take us up towards the church, and apparently when you get to the church there's an awesome view at the top. From a distance, the size of the village is often obscured, seeing as most of it lies in the low flat land of the Welland Valley. However, the spire of the Grade 2 listed Church of St Andrew the Apostle helps to identify Great Easton from far away. Mostly made of ironstone, this church stands on an eminence some 15 metres higher than the lowest points of Great Easton. This dates mainly from the 13th century, but herringbone masonry in the west wall provides evidence of an earlier building of either Anglo-Saxon or Norman origin. Until 1865, St Andrews was a chapelry to Bringhurst, a small village to the west of Great Easton, which had the mother church. Great Easton gained parish status in that year. Oddly though, it's had a burial ground since 1349. Most interments took place at Bringhurst, but a burial ground here was a matter of need rather than want. You see, with the Black Death spreading at the time, Bringhurst's graveyard was becoming full, forcing the Bishop of Lincoln to grant a licence for a new one at Great Easton. St Andrew's Church is part of the Six Saints Circa-Holt parish. When it's floodlit at night, this provides a strong focal point for the village. The northern side of its churchyard is often a carpet of primroses in the spring. There's a service held every Sunday in this church, with a communion service most Wednesdays too. It can seat around 140 people, although additional seating can be arranged by contacting the church wardens. Close to the church is one of Great Easton's village greens. By definition, it has at least 3 of these. On this one is a water pump next to a bench where it's possible to rest and take in the rural tranquility. You get some panoramic views towards Rockingham Castle up here. Well, the view from up here isn't quite as magnificent as I was led to believe, but it's still pretty good. Here we go. Here's the view from the green, looking south towards Rockingham Castle, which is somewhere over there behind all those buildings and stuff. Now, speaking of those buildings, a couple of these around the green are of note, including that one. Let's check out what this is. This intimate enclosed green is surrounded by a clutch of gorgeous houses, and several of them are Grade 2 listed. One of them used to be a pub. Today, known simply as number 6 Church Bank, it was called the Crown Inn. This dates from the 1500s and is one of the buildings within the Great Easton Conservation Area that still contains evidence of an original crook frame structure. It served the village as the Crown Inn from 1753 to 1909. Also on the edge of the green is a big house with a clock on its front facade. This is number 1 Church Bank, and it's alternatively known as the 1881 Clock House. This was the former home of the village clockmaker, Tom Fox. The original workshop where the man himself made them still adjoins the house to this day. Tom Fox made grandfather clocks and undertook clock repairs, whilst his brother worked as a blacksmith in a forge that was behind the house. After an about turn at the green, we've made our way to the High Street. Next, we've got Great Easton Village Hall. This building has had a few uses in its time. Originally, it was a hay wagon shed used by the farmer Tom Mould, he of the family we mentioned earlier. In 1933, he sold it to the Ancient Order of Oddfellows, and so this became their meeting place in Great Easton. In 1954, it was leased and subsequently purchased from the Oddfellows by the parish council and has served as the village hall to this day. The hall was extended in 1982 and 83, and its corrugated roof was replaced in 1987. When this was Tom Mould's hay wagon shed, the roof would have been thatched. The hall is where local residents have celebrated major local and national events, like royal jubilees and coronations. In 2003, the hall became a temporary workshop thanks to some local interest in the village from a well-known and well-loved TV programme. The building and the field behind it were the hub for an archaeological team, Channel 4's Time Team. Behind the village hall is a big open field known as the Paddock, or Brook Lane Paddock. In 2003, Time Team dug that field up as part of an archaeological project. They called it the Big Dig. They discovered a significant amount of Saxo-Norman pottery. Their findings revealed that the land was open space containing plot boundaries to the rear of a street frontage. That indicates that the village was already well established by the 11th century. No houses remain from that time. The earliest survivors are from the 1500s. In around 1620, most of Great Easton was rebuilt. Often referred to as the Great Rebuilding, this 17th century period brought the local vernacular architecture we still see today. The strong character and quality of craftsmanship is reflected by the high number of listed buildings in the village. That must have been great for the residents of Great Easton to meet the Time Team, Tony Robinson et al. Fantastic. Well, I don't know about Tony Robinson, but I've got a cunning plan, and that is to head down towards the shop next, or what used to be the shop. I'm led to believe it's no longer a shop anymore. Let's find out. Now to head down the high street towards two more little greens. They are two triangles of grass, one which features the War Memorial in the south and the other at the point where the high street meets Church Bank. That one features the Grade 2 listed red telephone box at its apex. There's far more than just greens down here. You can see two chapels marked on this. Only one still stands. Two more pubs are marked as well, but only one still trades. Loads of other buildings down here have stories to tell too. Great Easton no longer has a general store and post office. Both were based in this building on the High Street until September 2023. Since its closure, a new farm shop has been opened. That's located at Rectory Farm, but it's still too early to see the impact of that new business on the village. Although the Church of St Andrew has been a dominant feature of the village skyline for centuries, Great Easton was something of a hotbed for nonconformism, or at least it was from the late 17th century. By 1730, two dwelling houses held licences as nonconformist meeting places. As early as 1807, houses in the village were licensed as meeting places for Wesleyans. Later there were chapels, two of them, but only one still stands. That would be this. In 1857, this Wesleyan chapel was built, next to what used to be an old pinfold. This was used for worship until the 31st of August 1986. After its closure it was sold, and it's now a private house. You'll note it's made of brick, rather unusual given all the ironstone around here. This was made using bricks from a works on Caldecott Road, which produced them from 1850 onwards. Well, it would appear the old shop is actually still in use. It looks like a cafe now. It's got some seating out the front there. I didn't ask anybody if it is a cafe, but it certainly looks like one now. It's good to see that it's got a new use anyway. Not a village shop though. Now, we've made our way to another green, and in front of that green we have this building here. Now this was also a shop at one time. What did this sell, do you think? Where the High Street meets Cross Bank, we find this house. This is number 16 Cross Bank, a Grade 2 listed former butcher's shop. It was run by L.C. Ellingworth, the local butcher. Hidden behind it is a former slaughterhouse. Together, these two played an important part in village life. Now we're at the other green we spoke about a moment ago, the one with the War Memorial on it. Great Easton is not a thankful village. It lost a number of men in both world wars. In October 1920, this cross, made of Clipsham stone, was erected to memorialise those who fell in World War I. Some of the homes around the village that these men left behind to go to war now carry commemorative plaques. They were erected as part of World War I's centenary commemorations between 2014 and 2018. Here we have an attractive terrace of two-storey ironstone cottages. In this terrace is number 9 Cross Bank, which has a wide archway with double gates leading to the rear of the property. This archway may be evidence that the building was originally built as an alehouse. From the late 1700s until 1958, it was the Shoulder of Mutton pub. It never had a cellar or a bar, so the beer was kept on tap in barrels at the rear of the building, and customers were served from there. Okay, now we've reached Caldecott Road, and on the map it looks like down here there isn't a lot of much. But you'd be wrong. If you walk down here, you'll find something which is kind of hidden in plain sight. It's there, you just have to know it's there. So, what could it be? Let's see. Now let's see what happened to the other chapel, which no longer stands. To understand this one, we have to go back to 1798, when an independent chapel building was founded. No one is totally sure of where that stood, but it was rebuilt in 1830 on the road to Caldecott. By 1900, the replacement chapel was no longer in use. It was sold in 1919 and demolished soon afterwards. Its stones were then incorporated into the garden wall of the former manor house, Greylands, which today is number 1 Caldecott Road. Nothing remains of the chapel building now, but it did have a small burial ground. That can still be seen, but it could so easily be missed because it looks just like a pinfold. It's this walled enclosure on the corner of a new build cul-de-sac occupying what used to be another paddock. Back to the green, there are several listed buildings situated around this junction. One of them is the Sun Inn. This is now a gastropub which attracts custom from a wide area, many of whom travel by car. This has been a pub for several centuries. The first recorded landlord of the premises was in 1753, although the present building has had 19th and 20th century additions. As we learned earlier, Great Easton once had 6 public houses. We've now covered 4 of them. Number 5 is coming up shortly. Lots of lovely buildings here in Great Easton, aren't there? And sometimes the most historic ones aren't the obvious ones. I'm talking here particularly about an old factory, which we'll see in a moment. Before we get to that though, we have to discuss another building which is kind of, again, hidden in plain sight. It's on Banbury Lane, which is this little street here. It's a little cul-de-sac off the road through Great Easton. And number 2 is hiding behind that tree. What do you think this could have been in a past life? I'll tell you. Leading off Crossbank at this point is Banbury Lane. It was formerly known as School Lane, and the reason why can be found at number 2. This is a 2-storey ironstone cottage of 17th century origin, although it has some later brick additions. Prior to the opening of a board school at Bringhurst in 1874, village children were taught in this very building. This was sold off in 1924, at which point the walls were built up in brick and the roof was raised. It then became a reading room until around 1945. Just after Banbury Lane on Crossbank, you'll see this building. It's number 19. It was originally a farm building, as you can likely tell from the exterior. But from 1908 until 1963, this had another purpose. It's where a major local business was based, Moore & Haddon's Corset Makers. Corset making in Great Easton goes back much further than 1908. The 1851 census recorded 14 people in Great Easton who were corset manufacturers. 10 years later, William Haddon appears in the records as a corset and stay maker who employed 1 man, 1 boy and 40 women. We already know that corsets were made in other local villages, like Caldecott for example, just over the Rutland border. It seems it was a prominent local industry, so it's no wonder that Moore & Haddon took the opportunity to convert this old farm building into a factory. It's known that Moore & Haddon manufactured corsets in Great Easton for around 120 years in total, until this building eventually closed. It's now a private dwelling, but it still bears a nameplate on its wall, preserving its history of garment making. It's called the Old Corset Factory. Okay, we're crossing a bridge now. There's a brook below us. Again, not much water in that, just like the one we saw just up the road in Caldecott. So, yeah, not much water around at the moment. Now then, there's another green, yet another green to see next. And the building, which is next to it, is also of interest to us. Let's check this out. Great Easton had lots of other businesses and trades at one time. In addition to a raft of former shops, there were a lot of cottage industries. There were once 2 blacksmiths, 2 wheelwrights, 2 tailors, a surgeon, a stonemason, 5 shoemakers, and a cooper. There was also, unusually, a ketchup maker. Mushroom ketchup was made by the Ashby family at Bybrook House from the 1840s to around 1900. I would include a picture of the stuff, but honestly it looks revolting. I much prefer tomato ketchup myself. Great Easton also had bakers. The triangular green at the junction of Barnsdale and Brook Lane is where you find an old bakehouse. It was once 2 cottages, but one was demolished and a taller Victorian stone addition was built onto the one that remained. The date stone to this addition says 1879. The stone also contains the initials JC for John Culpin, who was the baker. This property is located at a prominent junction and makes a positive contribution to the conservation area. This junction is very picturesque, isn't it? Again, there are lots of listed buildings in this part of the village, including this thatched number, 8 Barnsdale. Now in residential use, this was pub number 5. It served as the King's Head Inn from 1818 until 1914, when it then became a shop. So that's 5 of the former pubs. Now as far as the 6th one goes, I have absolutely no idea where it was or what it was called. I searched for ages trying to pin it down, but no luck. In any event, the former King's Head stands almost at the edge of the conservation area boundary, but there is at least one more notable house that falls within it. Come with me to Barnsdale House, which looks a little out of place compared to these ironstone dwellings. Barnsdale House, which is set back from the road in its garden, is a distinctively early 19th century square building with a fine ashlar frontage facing outwards along the road looking towards Bringhurst. This was the home of the local doctor for over 100 years. So that's Great Easton, everybody. A great little Leicestershire village and full of rural character that can be seen at literally every turn. Let's continue through this lovely countryside by taking on the next village over to the west. See you for more Harborough tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.